So I think sometimes when you talk about like democracy and the need for like people to have a voice, I see that most people don't seem like interested in exercising that power, even when they have it. And even when they could have a huge impact, most people are, willing to just let whoever deal with it and, handle the consequences, even if they're not the best for them. So I think maybe this would be like a critique to your idea of like worker democracy.
You got to bop them.
Yeah, gotta bop them. Tell
You got
me
to
about
bop
that.
them. You have to bop them. The average, peasant wasn't interested in or capable of participating in democracy back before, we enabled that process. People have to be educated for democracy. If you were to, like, I mean, imagine, for example, you were to take like a 10, 20,000, 14th century French peasants and bring them into modern day France. Obviously, they would need to catch up on quite a lot, but I don't think they would be able to be very good citizens. Not just for linguistic difficulties or illiteracy or anything else like that, but because the idea that you should have control over your life is something that people kind of have to be taught. We see issues with this in former Soviet countries, where democratization was suddenly introduced to a bunch of former Soviet bloc countries, which were incredibly autocratic beforehand. And you had issues where they weren't good at democracy, not just because of corruption or oligarchy, but the people weren't educated for democracy. It requires a certain framework, a mindset, a belief in the potential for democracy to function appropriately, because without that, people will turn to autocrats, as historically has happened many times in situations where people lose faith in democracy. I don't think people have much faith in democracy right now here in America, hence our abysmal national election turnout and our much worse local election turnouts. I think we're trained for apathy. Apathy, of course, is what makes us, at least in a political sense, the easiest to control, because it means politicians have to give us less to continue the system moving forward. Politically engaged, active, ideologically driven citizens are the kinds of people who will make life hell for lazy or negligent politicians. If everyone's just kind of, like, for example, a ton of people came out to the election in 2020, right? And by a ton of people, I mean like 66% of the country. Like, woo, yeah, great for us. A
Barely over half.
Yeah, like like a pretty pathetic amount compared to a lot of other countries with better democracies than us. And a lot of the people came out because they were afraid of Trump or because they were afraid of Biden. But the people who voted in Biden are, I mean, what are we living through right now, right? Very little gets done when presidents actually win. Even Trump, as bad as he was, most of the work that he did was extra legal, deconstructing elements of our democracy. And Biden can barely get anything passed through the Senate. This is trained apathy. The less we expect of our government, the less we demand of them, the less apparent difference there is between an outright fascist and, dawdling old neoliberal. Or I guess he's not really a neoliberal, liberal. Um,
Aggressive.
Progressive liberal, if you will. Dawdling will keep. But people grow apathetic, and it's unfortunate. Apathetic voters are not as likely to be demanding, and it means that the general bar for political engagement is drawn down significantly.
I think that like realistically, without some sort of cultural, technology, some sort of cultural shift towards democracy, we'll probably see like a very similar workplace arrangement in cooperative or democratic models where like a small group of, highly motivated, highly competent people end up just running the show anyways. And most people are not super interested in engaging with it.
I think there would be a distinct improvement, even if there were no broader cultural shifts, if only because while there's a chance that the most politically engaged worker would still supersede the will of the broader working population of business, we know for a fact right now that the current model with the autocratic business owner, it does have a different set of interests empirically. So it would be a guarantee for a maybe of bad outcomes. But I do agree with you completely. An immediate shift to worker democracy without any kind of transitional period would be, I think, disastrous, in large part because I think most workers would turn towards essentially, I guess, the economic equivalent of strongmen. They would turn towards people who say, we'll handle the paperwork, we'll handle the data, just sit tight and things will be okay. And you would be able to imitate, maybe not to the same degree of severity, but at least to some degree, some of the more pernicious elements of autocratic economic systems. I think it's possible to introduce people to the worthwhileness of worker democracy, if for no other reason than because that used to kind of be the way things always were. Self-started business was, I think, the norm for most of post-agricultural human history, simply because the superstructures for corporate enterprise didn't exist in the same way. Like a lot of businesses, I mean, it was literally like a merchant would sell their wares, a farmer would grow their stuff and then sell their stuff at the market. People would have the milk, or they would sell them. Yeah, so stuff like that, right? And while we don't have sociological data from 500 years ago, not good stuff at least. I mean, it's all very speckled, like the cows they were milking. We can still see general patterns emerge in how people reflect on the nature of those workplaces and those businesses. And I think that generally people like having a sense of control if they feel like it begets good outcomes. If they feel like there's no point, they would rather defer things to an authoritarian because, at least to that respect, they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to bother. The goal would be to convince people that it is worthwhile. And of course, right now in worker cooperatives, workers do seem to be happier. There is a distinct positive trend between happiness in workers and workplace democracy. So I think if people have an inclination towards this, this would be something worth applying broadly. And people are very malleable. After all, the concept of political democracy as it currently is practiced is very, very new. And it took some finagling to get us to this point, too. But we managed it. America's not doing great, but there are countries that do it better. I hope one day that people would look upon economic authoritarianism with as much disdain as the average Westerner looks at, traditional political authoritarianism. Like 100 years from now, they would go like, you know, people used to have like just obey the rules of their boss or they'd get fired. They had no say. They couldn't choose their boss, something. A dream, maybe, but it'd be nice, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reality is that workplace democracies, cooperatives, and like right now, they tend to be founded and participated in by people who are highly invested in the model. And so we're selecting for like this group of people that is already probably has the kind of culture that you'd want people to have in general in society, which is people that are invested in workplace democracy, who care about it, who are willing to participate in it, who believe in it as a system, and so on. And so I think that like gigachads, as you may put it, if you can acknowledge that there needs to be this like cultural shift, but really like the cultural technology and like the willingness to engage in a kind of workplace organization, I would say is like maybe the key ingredient here for making these things work.
Certainly. There's an element of faith leaping to be undertaken past a point, of course, but this is a struggle that we're going to have to face in the world anyway, because we have seen, not only in our lifetime, but we'll continue to see throughout our lifetimes, nations with a long history of authoritarianism have democracy introduced to them, and we have seen troubles, certainly. Iraq and Afghanistan, I think, would be clear evidence of a number of problems, not just with the predisposition of the citizenry, but also with how difficult it can be to have a well-established, political system just thrust upon a group of people with no pre-existing civil society and essentially no like meaningful connection between the people and the leaders we chose for them. But we see this issue crop up. America for a while was only white landowning people who could vote. It's a project that takes some finagling, but when we made the decision to allow people to vote in their leaders, when that was just a thing we decided to set out upon here in the States, we had less evidence then for the benefits of democracy than we do now for the benefits of worker democracy. Of course, they didn't have proper sociological study back then, so maybe it's not the fairest comparison. Maybe there would have been, Poindexters and eggheads crunching the numbers beforehand, but it is, at the end of the day, an ideological predisposition. How much do you value freedom, democracy, free association? Right now, the data trends positive, so all I say right now prescriptively is that we should do what we can to make these ideas more popular. And I'd say that as enthusiastically as I would encourage people to engage in local democratic systems at the city and state level, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing anyway. Your local business is a local political institution. And by making an effort to more thoroughly engage with that, to look into ways by which they can exercise their power over that, they're, I think, doing the same basic thing as attending a PTA meeting or a town hall, what have you, you know. They're educating themselves for democracy, becoming a good citizen. And the hope would be that you could build something off of that, not just advocacy for these systems, but an ability to participate in them should they come about.